Every year, at pretty much every major auto show, one or more automakers showcase a new plug-in vehicle that they want to bring to production. Depending on the automaker, and sometimes the show, the vehicle is either a concept car that bears very little resemblance to any production model, a pre-production prototype that shows some form of promise, or a ready-to-launch production intent vehicle that's good enough to be in a showroom right there and then. Regardless of which of these states the vehicle is in, they're all bound to attract a lot of attention, especially if they represent a brand new plug-in model or a shift away from what came before. In the last 12 months alone, we've seen Kia, Hyundai, Volkswagen, Jaguar, Audi and Mercedes-Benz, to just name 6 companies, use auto shows to showcase cars they promise will be on the road in the near future. Except, with very few exceptions, promised launch dates for electric cars have a tendency to slip backwards, causing frustration among those who may or may not have already put a deposit or order in to own one. Even when they do launch on time, it's not unusual to see demand dramatically outstrip supply, with back orders stretching back months or even years. Delays in launches and constrained supply aren't problems that are exclusively related to plug-in cars, but they do seem to be more common in the plug-in car world. So why aren't automakers solving these problems, and what's the reasons behind all of these delays? The most common challenge affecting new plug-in cars appears to be demand outstripping supply. This, in turn, is caused by 2 main problems. The automaker in question failing to properly assess how many cars it needed in the first place, and a desire from the automaker to ensure that the cars it makes are purchased and/or to ensure constrained supply to create buzz. The first, of course, can be easily addressed by better planning on the automaker's part. But since many mainstream automakers are new to the whole plug-in car thing, there's still some fear about the return of investment. Car companies don't want to make huge numbers of cars that nobody will buy. At the same time, however, it's becoming a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy because people can't buy cars that aren't easy to get hold of, and restricted launch markets don't help at all. I'll also admit too that sometimes, although thankfully less and less, car companies don't really want to make the car in the first place, so they'll restrict production and volume, producing so-called compliance cars that are purposely built in large enough numbers to satisfy sales regulations, but nothing else. By better setting expectations for sales, either by looking at market demand or the competition, automakers could better ensure larger production volumes at vehicle launch. But again, that requires more investment, which seems to be a sticking point for many car companies, who still seem unsure of their commitment to, or demand for, electric vehicles. I should note here too that not every automaker behaves this way. Porsche has recently upped its production plans for the Taycan because of high demand, and Audi has for the e-tron SUV. But in reality, most automakers aren't changing their production plans upwards, at least not up front. That's partly, as I've already said, fear, but it also helps create a buzz which in turn can drive sales. You see, if something is in demand and it has a wait list, we're drawn to want it. Imagine a restaurant with a line out of the door next to a restaurant with no wait, no line. People will assume the restaurant with a line out the door sells better food because it's in high demand, and as long as they're okay with waiting, they'll join that queue for food. Automakers use this psychology all the time to help drive demand, and we suffer longer wait times because of it. Before we get away from demand, it's also worth noting that some delays are caused when a particular market enjoys sudden or unexpected demand. This is happening right now to certain cars, including the Kia e-Niro. If production volumes at a factory are already set, and remember, making more cars isn't as easy as flicking a switch. It can't be done overnight because contracts have to be negotiated for increases in battery packs and other components from the suppliers. So it's fairly common for an automaker to shift production originally earmarked from one market to another, as it makes sense to deal with demand in that first market before executing a launch in another. Next, we have to examine availability of parts. While automakers do get to set their own production volumes, those who rely on third-party suppliers for things like motors or battery packs are sometimes beholden to those companies when it comes to production volume. Or rather, they face shortages in components they need in order to increase their own production volumes. Usually at the heart of this is a battery pack shortage. Battery companies are known to hike prices as demand rises and to also turn down one company's request to increase pack production if a rival can pay more for the same product. It's a dog-eat-dog world where shortages are felt by those who pay the least for the thing that's in short supply and least where companies are willing to underwrite the extra costs needed to secure the large supply they need. A less common cause is a desire from the automaker to bring a vehicle to market more quickly than perhaps it should, or poor estimation skills by engineers, either because a rival has a car coming to market that the automaker in question is actively scared of, or because the automaker feels under market pressure to deliver. In this case, CEOs or boards tend to push a launch in order to save face and/or influence company bottom lines with a boost in sales just before the end of a quarter. It doesn't always result in a delay, but it sometimes happens. The last reason? Lack of expertise. In most automakers' cases, they're experienced with internal combustion engine vehicle production, but they may be making their first or second plug-in car. And while some of the fundamentals of electric vehicle production are just the same as they would be for an internal combustion engine vehicle, many automakers are still feeling their way through their first model or two, and problems that were either unexpected or processes that were incorrectly estimated occur to push back the launch. This happened in the case of the Audi e-tron. There was a software bug that needed fixing before launch, but it required extra regulatory approval, pushing back the car's launch date. In an ideal world, these launch delays shouldn't happen. Hopefully, as more plug-in cars hit the market, the number of delays will drop. But to be honest, there's a really simple way for you to avoid this altogether. Don't bet on buying a brand new model as it hits the market. This not only means that you'll avoid disappointment if the car is pushed back, but it also helps to protect you from the inevitable teething problems and bugs that occur with every single new car out there, electric or not, when they come to market. Wait a couple of months for production to settle down and for the problems to be ironed out, and then go right for it. That's it. Thanks for watching. Let us know if you liked it or you didn't like it below. Scribble a comment, hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on a single episode. And if you want to support us, there are 3 ways below that you can do just that. I'll be back soon with more content, but until then, keep evolving.